Hi there, my name is Stephanie Lafazanos, and I'm very happy to do this webinar for you on women's sexual energetic anatomy. So what makes me qualified to talk about this in the first place? Well, I've been a holistic practitioner for, I don't know, maybe 15 years. I'm certified as a medical intuitive, and I've been studying Tantra for a very long time. I have learned so much about sexuality. It's been a huge part of my learning and my own healing process. I've personally had different types of sexual trauma, and everything I'm about to teach you and show you are knowledge and wisdom that has really helped me to feel more comfortable in my body and with my pleasure, and has helped me a lot in relationships, but also to understand that sexual energy is, it's our life force energy. So it's a big part of who we are. It supports the energy of our life, of our growth into our full potential. So our spiritual selves. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the slideshow. There's going to be a break. So there's going to be two parts to this. Yeah, so you'll see both links. So here we go. I am going to share my screen. Here we go. So, all right. I'm going to choose a laser pointer. There we go. All right, so I just want to first show this picture and just say that we're all beautiful and we're all unique. So sexual energy is not just about sex, it's about how we live our lives, how we create in the world, the energy behind our life. It's our life force energy. Sexual energy is how we arrive here in a physical body. So this is a picture of a variety of beautiful yoni flowers. So yoni is a Sanskrit word that means vulva, or actually it's the womb or the vagina. Actually, it means the womb. But I just want to show this picture just to give you a feeling of how beautiful we are, and that often our sexual energy is a mysterious thing. For women, the sexual organs are inside the body versus men who have all their sexual organs right out in front. So sexuality and sexual energy can often be this mysterious thing because it's all happening inside of us where we can't see it. So it's something that we really have to connect to as women. Unfortunately, a large part of the culture that we've come from has had a lot of shame and guilt around our sexuality, and it's become such a taboo. We've inherited this from our parents and from our grandparents. Victorian women were not even supposed to admit that they even had sexual feelings. And I know a lot of women still carry these attitudes, and they've handed it down to their daughters. I was at a trade show, and a woman who was maybe in her 60s came up to me and said, you know, I never talked to my daughters about sex because it was considered inappropriate. And if you think about it, I don't know how old you are, I'm 44, but if you're around my age and you have parents, or even if you're younger, often your parents would not talk about sex because they learned it was a personal and a private thing. So they wouldn't share or talk about it with their daughters even. I'm not saying all parents are like this, but many parents have been like this. And as a result, we all suffer. So I am doing my job, I feel, of talking more about this and opening the conversation up so that we can all be better informed and so that we can all pass on this empowering wisdom and knowledge to our own daughters. And to be able to do this, I'm going to give you a little bit of an understanding of where I'm coming from. So in my teachings, they're coming from a Taoist lineage. So this is a little bit of Taoist cosmology so that I can really start from the basics and the foundation of talking about sexual energy. So this is coming from a perspective that's thousands of years old. It's a Chinese medicine perspective. Chinese medicine was born out of what was discovered by the Taoist masters, or the Taoist yogis, if you want to call them. It's sort of like the Taoist Qigong and Taoist Tantra. All of these technologies for living a long and healthy life was discovered by these wise people, the shamans and the shaman and the priestesses in the Tao. So here we have a picture of, and this, I will show you where all the books are in the bottom corner. So this is called Awakening Healing Light of the Tao by Master Mantak Chia, one of my teachers. And so here we have a view of what is called Wu Ji. It's heaven or the void. It's the grand ultimate. So this is what Taoists believe, that we all come from this grand ultimate energy. And the first differentiation was like the stirring of qi. The first stirring of qi. Scientists might call this the Big Bang. And what happened next was a separation into opposites. So then we have a separation into yin and a separation into yang. And that's where the Taoist symbol, the Tai Chi symbol, comes from. It's a blending of these two opposites. These two opposites are found in our entire universe, well, in our world anyway. And we're going to be talking more about this. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a reference. And then also from Tai Chi, or the Grand Ultimate, this is a dance between yin and yang. Tai Chi means the dance between yin and yang. We got the 5 elements. So there's the 5 elements there. And then, wonder if I can get rid of this thing. I don't know. Let's see, hide video panel. Nope, show video panel. No. Okay. Oh, let's move this. Okay, so the 10,000 things. And then Earth and Wenwu. So all things in existence, manifest and unmanifest, have come from this. So in this little picture, we have a little diagram of how that translates and relates into our life as we know it. So there's Wu Ji, and Wu Ji split into the 2 things, yin and yang. So here we have the egg, which is yin, and we have sperm, which is yang. And then we have the fertilization to implantation in the uterus, and the creation of the triple warmer. So these are 3 energy centers. Upper, which is here, middle, which is in the heart, right here, and lower, which is in the belly. And then from there, we get the development of the 5 organs, or 5 elements, 5 organ system, and then all the other meridians and acupressure points in the body. So this is a diagram of the 5 elements. So the 5 elements are something that we're going to be talking about a lot. And the 5 elements translate into the major organ pairs or sisters. So we've got fire, the heart, and the small intestine. And fire feeds the earth, the stomach and spleen and pancreas, which feeds the metal, the lungs, the skin, the large intestine, which feeds the water, kidneys, and the bladder, and the sexual organs. The water feeds wood, so things can grow. We have the liver and the gallbladder, and then we're back to the heart and small intestines. So the emotions tend to be stored in the organs. So each organ has its positive emotions, and it also has its negative emotions. We call these the virtues in Tao Tantra. So we've got love, joy, happiness, and we've got fairness, openness, and trust, the ability to receive. We have courage and righteousness in the lungs and large intestine. We have gentleness, calmness, feelings of safety, silence, stillness in the water element, the kidneys. And we have kindness and generosity in the wood element, the liver. And then all of these have their inverse or negative emotions. So the heart and small intestine tends to hold on to hatredness, impatience, bitterness, or cruelty. The spleen tends to hold on to worry, anxiety, mistrust. The skin, large intestines tend to hold on to sadness and depression. Kidneys and sexual organs and bladder tend to hold on to fear. Liver tends to hold on to anger and frustration, and jealousy or envy. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about all of these because it's really important for women and men to balance all of the elements in the body. It's sort of like the internal weather system. So when you've got too much of one thing, it throws everything off. Or if you have not enough of one thing, that also throws everything off, because all of these elements are kind of like dependent on each other. There's a relationship between them. They all support each other, and they all regulate or contain each other. So for women, I find that often we need to do a lot of emotional work first. There is no separation between our, sense of sexuality and our emotions, really. And the emotions are very, very connected to how we feel sexually. Often different sexual issues come about by blockages in the organs and around the emotions. A lot of problems that were talked about in the book by, what's her name? It's called Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. We'll come to that book. She talks about how a lot of the problems that she sees in women's sexual organs are also related to what's going on emotionally for them, what's going on in their life, what's going on mentally. So Chinese medicine understood this kind of connection between the physical body and physical health, the emotional and mental health. And that is one reason why I have gained so much from learning about it. Western medicine is still a fairly new medicine, so it hasn't quite scratched the surface on all of these connections. So here I have a chart from the Tao Tantric Arts for Women by Minka DeVos, and it's talking about the attributes of Yin and Yang. Again, we're building a foundation here for understanding what I'm going to talk about later. I helped Minka to get her book, The Tao Tantric Arts for Women, out into the world. I went to her house every day for a whole year and helped her with this book. So that was a great honor and a great learning for me. And here we made a chart about what the essential yin qualities are and what the essential yang qualities are. So at some point in my life, I was like, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be feminine? And the first place I started looking at what the difference was between yin and yang. They say that in Chinese medicine, that health is a function of how balanced you are in your yin and yang. So good health is about being balanced in yin and yang. So we're always trying to come to balance. So here we have an essential yin, the earth, the moon, the water, stillness, life force, the Shakti, the force of life that flows through all things. Flow, cool, passive, inward and deep, contracting, dark and night, descending and slow. The essential yang is heaven, the sun, fire, movement, consciousness or Shiva. Form, it's warm, it's active, it's outward and surface, it's expanding, it's light and day, ascending and fast. So a book I have, I'll just show you the book by Jiao Lang Zhao. It's called Ancient Healing for Modern Women. She was and is a traditional Chinese medicine doctor and also a medical doctor. She moved to North America after practicing Chinese medicine in China for quite a while. And she said that there is a pattern that she sees when treating people in North America. And that is right here. In the West, we tend to be too busy, not resting or relaxing enough, which leads to yin deficiency. So she noticed in China, people had yang deficiency, but in the West, people had yin deficiency. That means people here are more yang. And let's face it, we do live in more of a man's world. At least we hope and feel that that is changing, but we tend to move fast and, we tend to be busy people. We tend to be very active and more outward, so paying attention to things outside of us as opposed to paying attention to things that are really internal and very deep. And, not having enough stillness in our life. So heaven and ascending is up, right? And earth and descending are down. So this is about, yin is about coming down from the head and the mind or up, this concept of God or spirit, but into our physical body. And I find that a lot of people here are not actually physically embodied, and that causes a lot of health issues. I don't know if religion had a large part to play in that, but focusing on the mind, the capabilities of the mind and God, and rejecting things like our gut instincts and our feelings, because those sort of descending or lower aspects of ourselves, like our animal self, are very informative, and they help us to live our life every day. We learn and get so much information through our senses. But those attributes and those qualities have been downplayed. So hot flashes, for example, in menopause are a classic symptom of yin deficiency. So in essence, throughout your life, you may have burned up all the water and not replenished it through rest and stillness. That's from being too busy. So then As well as yin and yang attributes, we also kind of made a chart about the masculine, essential masculine and essential feminine attributes. So you can have a look here. There's a few that, like, as I was saying, this descending thing makes, you know, us more connected to our sensual selves, like our feelings, our sensors. We have sensors all over our body that send messages to our brain, and our brain sends messages back to the body. Seems that our culture tends to favor the mental more, but hopefully that we're learning now that we need to pay attention to our body and to our feelings. Also I like to say, we are human beings, not human doings. So when we tend to get really busy, we're always, you know, focusing on a goal or a purpose. Also, one of the big things I had to learn personally about my yin energy or my feminine energy was to be able to be receptive, like to actually be able to receive love, nurturing, anything that's good for me, that helps me grow. That also means receiving help from people on the outside. So the feminine energy is receptive, whereas masculine energy is more penetrative or giving. Feminine energy is nurturing, masculine energy is protective. This is a big one here, surrender. So if you are not able to surrender, you may feel like you may be more of a controlling person. This is something I've had experience with in my life, of being over controlling with myself. So it's like my inner masculine, because we all have that masculine and feminine inside of us. So I found that my inner masculine was trying to control my inner feminine. And a lot of times women have trouble surrendering, and this leads, and they're too controlling, so they're too much in their masculine. So that leads to problems as well in life, but also in sex. Here's another one, cooperative versus competitive. Men actually produce more testosterone in competitive environments. So all of these attributes here of the masculine is good. It's for the masculine. That's just the masculine energy. And like being competitive and taking risks here, thriving on challenge, conquering nature. It's like taking these risks. That actually helps a man to produce more testosterone. When I use the word man, I actually mean that being with testicles. When I say woman, I mean that being with ovaries. I know that different people have different ways of identifying gender these days, so I just want to make it clear. Man means a person with testicles, and woman means a person with ovaries. So, but then here, cooperative actually helps women to produce the female hormones, estrogen, and all the female hormones, expressive, emotional. When we get together with our girlfriends and we want to talk and express ourselves, share our emotions, you know, we're much more sharing from the heart. And we tend to be a little bit more sharing from the heart and more emotional than men. And it has a lot to do with our physiology and how we're made up. We're more social. We want to work with nature and commune with nature. So yeah, soft and curvy, hard and angular. So by looking at this chart, you might also be able to identify, you know, different aspects of yourself that are more masculine and that are more feminine. And if you know, can get an idea of how imbalanced that you are, that can help you a lot in your health and in your energy. Ultimately, the masculine energy and the feminine energy, or the yin and yang, are polar opposites. So there is a charge and there is an attraction between them. So often, like, you know, different teachers of Tantra will talk about, like David Deida would say, you know, if a man comes home from work and then his partner or his wife is also there home from work and they're both in their masculine because they've been working, then they're going to be repelled from each other. there needs to be like this exchange of yin and yang. So being able to go into the masculine and go into the feminine and finding, you know, the polar opposite and the charge that actually brings those two together. Is playfulness here? I don't see playfulness, but like the feminine can be more playfulness and spontaneity. So again, back to the book, Awakening Healing Light of the Tao. So we have different sources of energy all around us, all the time, that people don't even really think about or connect into. But we can connect into them, and that is what we do through the practice of Qigong and of Tantra. So the sources of energy are the earth, the universe, or higher self. So here's a picture showing the earth force coming up through the feet into a person and also into an animal. And this is the universal or higher self or heavenly energy coming down through the crown of the head into the human being. And I just thought this was interesting, that the universal energy comes down through the tail of the animals. So very different, whereas our tail would be here, but because we're erect, the energy comes down through our mind. And obviously, human beings and animals are different in the way that we function. So I just found that interesting. And right here, there's a picture of the kidney meridian. So there's a point on the bottom of the foot, which is the bubbling spring. And this is where the energy of the earth comes up through the body. And it comes up along this meridian, up the inside of the legs, and into the pelvis, up to the tailbone, up the spine. So there's an energy pathway that comes all the way up the spine. And it comes directly into the kidneys. And then from the kidneys, the earth energy goes into the sexual organs for both men and women. It then also connects up into other parts of the body. So the sexual energy is fed by the earth energy. In fact, it's so important for our species to continue to be here and alive that these organs receive that energy first. So here we have the Jing Qi. So this is the energy, what's called the principal energy. This is like raw energy. It's our sexual energy. Principal energy, or Jing Qi, is transformed into Qi, or life force. And Qi, or life force, is then transformed into Shen, or spiritual energy. So our sexual energy is essential for cultivating our spiritual energy. I learned about this when I was studying Tantra. So there's, a part of us that feels as though maybe on a collective that this sexual energy is shameful and bad and dirty or whatever. We have guilt. And maybe that's from religion. I know for many people it is. But actually, the sexual energy is what enables us to grow up into our spiritual selves. So it needs to be honored, it needs to be treasured, it needs to be cultivated, actually, in order for us to grow into fully actualized human beings. So here's an image of the kidneys and the navel, and then this is the sexual center. So this is where sexual organs would be. And this spot right in the middle of all of them, which would be in your lower belly, is called the original force. So original chi is stored in the space between the navel and the sexual center. So this lower energy center we call dantian is an energy center that we often gather and collect and store chi in the physical body. That energy supports the physical body, it supports the emotional body, it supports the spiritual body. So this is an area that we focus on a lot in Tantra and in Qigong, to store and build this original force. And here I've said sex and love condense into orgasmic chi, reuniting heaven and earth to create original chi from the yin, the egg, and from the yang, the sperm. Sex and love condense into orgasmic chi. This reunites heaven and earth in our body. So that orgasmic energy is actually very important to create human beings. That orgasmic chi creates original chi from the egg and the sperm. So there's many ways that we gain energy. This is an image of all the different places in the body where we can gain energy through. The earth force, through the sexual organs, perineum and the sacrum, gathering energy into the navel, directly into the dantian. This is gathering energy in through the pumps, and the spine, through the crown, through this point here, and also chi is breathed in through the nose in the form of oxygen. We also gain energy by eating food as well, but we gain energy through these basic channels of love, joy, and compassion. We gain chi from the vital organs when they are all harmonized, and they're sort of like, you know, they're all harmonized with each other. We looked at the 5 elements, and when the emotions are all harmonized, we actually gain energy from those positive emotions and positive virtues. So we gain energy through food and water, through air and breath. We gain energy through focusing on the chi ball in our belly, building the original chi. And that's through Qigong. We gain energy through turning inwards. So meditation turns inwards, Qigong, you're turning inwards. Any kind of self-awareness or mindfulness techniques where you're turning inwards help you to gain energy, like yoga. We gain energy through transforming the sexual energy with the microcosmic orbit and ovarian breathing. So our sexual energy is a source of energy. We saw it in the belly there, the original chi. That is a source of energy. And by transforming it or moving it through the body, it's like raw crude energy, like raw crude oil. And then raw crude oil needs to go through the refinery process. And then eventually becomes this, it can be turned into jet fuel. It can be used to send a rocket to the moon. That's a more highly refined kind of fuel. Sexual energy is like that. It's raw when it's down here in the belly and the sexual organs. As it comes up into the heart and into the brain, it is refined through the microcosmic orbit. You're going to learn about that in a second, where it is. And through ovarian breathing, or for men, testicle breathing. We also gain energy through energy gaining pleasure or inward orgasms as opposed to outward orgasms. Outward orgasms are orgasms where we lose energy. Inward orgasms is where we take the energy and we move it through the body, through the microcosmic orbit. Also through sleep, touch, and other soul food. So here is the microcosmic orbit. We're talking about taking the sexual energy from here and transforming it into a kind of fuel that can be used for all parts of our being. So the microcosmic orbit is a combination of two channels. This is the front channel, and this is the back channel. So these channels are pathways or meridians that energy flows on. And these are two of the main energy channels in the body. And then from these two channels, there's many meridians that flow all over the body to different to the arms and legs, and that correspond with each of the organs. So we take the sexual energy from the base and we move it up the back channel to refine it so that it can be used by the heart, by the head. And when I first started studying the Taoist practices, I started learning these techniques of taking the sexual energy and moving it up this channel, up the spine to the head. And I had an incredible experience on one day where I first started to learn this and first started to practice it. I not only had a full body orgasm, but my body started going into different yoga postures because I literally popped out of my body. My energy became so big that it was like my body was putting me into stretched out positions to try to contain the hugeness of this energy. Another thing that happened that day was my creative center opened. I started writing poetry like nobody's business, and my heart center opened. I knew that because I saw my mom later that day, and I had more compassion for her than I'd ever had. I guess I've been very judgmental about myself and also very judgmental about her when I was that age. But I opened my heart. I was able to see her and really understand her and really feel her, like as if for the first time. I had no judgments. I was just like, oh, Mom, I totally get you. Oh my gosh. So this day was an amazing day. I was like a superhuman, like creative and compassionate. And it was one of my first times doing these practices, these tantric practices. And I was like, praying when I went to bed that I would never change. But of course I went back to my normal self the next day, but it really taught me that there's something to this, like this sexual energy is so powerful that it can open up all these different centers in the body. These are all the pumps along the spine that the pumps in the sacrum, T11, C7, and the jade pillow and Bai Hui that pump or refine the sexual energy. And so moving the energy along the pathway also takes the energy, for example, like if you take the energy up to C7, which is this big bony part in the back of the neck, it will take the energy to the glands and the associated body parts that it's connected to. So in this case, it's the thyroid gland. A lot of people have thyroid issues, so taking the energy up to this area will feed that gland. And then there's the throat in the front. So the throat chakra, if you know about the chakras, that's a center of expression. So our sexual energy can actually be used to heal our body and our glands and our organs and every aspect of ourselves. This picture is taken from Emergence of the Sensual Woman by Saida Desilets, another one of my amazing Tao Tantra teachers. So we talked about gaining energy pleasure as opposed to losing energy pleasure. This is true for both men and women. And so gaining energy pleasure, as I sort of talked about, our sexual energy, the Jing Qi, is kind of focused and concentrated in the pelvic floor. So I am going to just do a little switch and stop my video. My time is coming up here for the length of my video, and I will catch back up with you on the next video.